On episode 6 of Convergence, Brendan has a manifesto, Mark has another new podcast, and we're all made of bits of the universe.
So I've been on my health stuff and ranting and raving about different things all the time about like what works for me and what I hope works for other people and like really like to share some cool things I've learned about healing my own body. And there was a time where you gave me the boundary. You're like, okay, I don't really want to hear any more of that stuff as it pertains to me. Like, I'm happy to hear for you. That's great. And so I guess I wanted to check if that boundary is still there, or if you're open, to talking about stuff. And it's completely cool if it is still there. And I was just checking without actually trying to cross it yet.
I think I'm on something of a kick at the moment where I'm feeling the discomfort and doing it anyway. So with why universe? Why does the universe keep doing these things to me?
Loving you?
Because we just literally a minute before we jumped on, I just got a bunch of food ordered for after we've. Okay, what have you got for me, Brendan? Okay, so let me finish the thought.
I don't know it. It's not about what you eat.
So yes, the universe. A couple of things I've been finding this week where I find those moments of discomfort, and I think, okay, part of my work, I want it to be about helping people move through that. So
it's about noticing those triggers and noticing what gets you feeling icky and pushing through that and being like, okay, this makes me feel icky, but I'm gonna try it out anyway. So I'm proud of you for that, for allowing me to do my own weird thing. I don't have any like suggestions or answers or even maybe a challenge, maybe. But on last week's episode, you mentioned something about mystery pains that you were kind of just taking ibuprofen for, and like, you know, ibuprofen is your friend. It was working really well for you, and you had mentioned the heart, like as a concern for it. You had mentioned the possible heart scare stuff. Honestly, that didn't even cross my mind. I either didn't know about it or forgotten about it. I was thinking more of the microbiome issue, because the microbiome is super, like, you know, science is learning more and more about how important the microbiome is for you and keeping that regulated. And but then even more than that, in my mind, I'm thinking, if you have a pain, that's your body giving you a signal that something is wrong, something you're doing, something that's happened to you, something isn't what your body likes, and it's trying to alert you to do the opposite. The way that I see Western society is that we take a pill to numb some sort of sensor, some sort of alert mechanism within our body, and we keep numbing it and we keep numbing it, and then we end up with some disease that we're like, how in the world did I get this? This came out of nowhere. When it didn't, we've been ignoring the signs the whole time.
The same is true. I think we can view that from a technical perspective as well, because I used to preach this whole thing about I'm going to take it in a very different direction, but it's related in that a lot of my work used to be with the WordPress system. So if you've ever run a blog, you might use WordPress, and you want to make it do a thing, and so you download a plugin, and then that plugin doesn't quite work with the theme that you've got, and so what you end up doing is you add another plugin, and then that doesn't quite do this, and so you end up papering over it with this. You end up with this Jenga tower that is so delicate that you're like, no, don't update that plugin, or if you do, you've got to update it in this order, because that thing is tied to that thing, and if that thing breaks, then the whole website goes down, and it doesn't tell us why. So I am one. You find no disagreement from me so far.
And honestly, that's kind of the extent of what I wanted to bring up. I was like,
yeah.
I just hate the idea of my friend, silencing his alarm system when there might be something to it, and there might be like it could be a food intolerance or allergy. It could be a just stretching in a weird way, and then now it's done something that needs some physical therapy. It needs I don't know, something, and I would hope that would be a priority. Not I'm trying. That's the wrong word. I was trying to find a better word, but like non-ibuprofen.
Yes. To put it in some context, I take ibuprofen once or twice a month.
Oh, okay. But I got the impression it was like one a day or something. My dad.
No, this is not a chronic.
Oh, that's great.
Or
that's
even
great.
No. It's this is. Ibuprofen is, I haven't got time to deal with this right now. Yes, I know the body's telling me something. Yeah. I haven't got time to listen right now. I just need to get on with my day.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. And that's
after more than a couple of days of that, you're like, okay, what's happening here? This is every day. Now we start to, now we start to ask some questions. Yeah, I am not a fan of papering over a thing with drugs and just letting it move on. I think I made a comment, I can't remember if it was last week or the week before, it's where I thought we were going to go in terms of me, sort of the things that I'm changing about my life and the world are in something of a gauntlet, and I have to be able to run one bit of the gauntlet before I can run the next one. I can't do too many things at the same time. And so, this week, it was wonderful because, things happen. Your body is ready to tell you when it wants things. And I went on a big walk, 14,000 steps along my canal on Tuesday. And I used to do this every week. And it was great. And I'm looking forward to doing it more and more and more. And if I could swing it, I'd be ambitious to say I wish I could do it every day, but certainly more than once a week. And so, but it's funny. I sit here now, and the cold weather's really creeping in. And as you were talking early, I felt that little twinge in my the shoulder where I've got this thing.
Hey, you're talking about me.
Yeah. Hello. And I would, yes, and it would be great to fix that, but also, this is sounding defensive, and perhaps it is, and so I will rein it back. Well, actually, funnily enough, it's one of those things. It's been on my to-do list for so long that it's just like, just do it. I've got to change my GP surgery because I've used the same GP surgery for 20-something years, probably nearly 30 years. And I've moved twice or three times since then, and I've still kept the same surgery. It's now a bit closer to me than it used to be. But there's one that's just down the road, and all I've got to do is walk in there and get and put my passport down and say, sign me up. And then I want to get, I don't know if they do like a health check thing. They might do, and I'm terrified of that. But it would also be a good idea to have a couple of things looked at, like the blood pressure, and all that kind of stuff, because it runs in the family.
So GP surgery, I think. So GP, I'm thinking general practitioner.
Yes.
Okay, and then surgery, to me, that means cutting you open. So I'm assuming
cutting you open. Yeah, surgery just would be their little office. Yeah, I know. It's yes.
Just checking on language. Just checking on words. And like surgery for 20 years. What?
Yeah. Flay me open and just leave me exposed for 20 years.
Yikes.
Yeah. So yeah, it's one of those things. It's like it's heaving ever more into view, and not in a. I think it's come that way in a more dreadful sense. In a sense of like, oh, come on, Stedman, you've got to do the thing now, and it's all very. Whereas it's starting to feel more like all these bits are starting to stack up quite nicely, and they're sort of aligning, and it's just like, this is the next piece that's going to align, and it'll get there. And big theme, certainly this week, and I think really of the last few weeks, has been stop pushing. Stop pushing and just listen and see what comes up, and stop, with the shoulds and the expectations. And I'm paying for that now because I've put off a couple of things that I probably should have done earlier in the week, but that's fine. That's my responsibility. That's personal responsibility, and we take it. But ultimately, very much taking this signal on of like, I've spent so much of my life living in the land of the shoulds. And in just little subtle ways, it's not completely going away, but in little subtle ways, I'm finding push at this point. What happens if I don't and try and squeeze and just go? An answer will come, and it does. Or the question becomes irrelevant and you move on.
Yeah. Oh man, I've had a couple great instances lately where I procrastinated so much that it no longer mattered.
Yes.
That is just such a glorious feeling. It's like, I'm just going to put this off a little bit longer. Oh, now it never had to be done. So I'm so glad I didn't waste time on it. Oh man, it doesn't happen very often, but when it does, God, that feels good.
Mwah.
Yeah. I was doing a project where we were doing a basement remodel, and the city to get the permits wanted me to do a site plan, which is walking the entire perimeter of the property, not just the basement, and marking out the elevation, where all the trees are, where the properties sit, where the house sits on the property, and the driveways, and a bunch of stuff that is completely irrelevant to this tiny basement remodel that we're doing, all on the inside. It doesn't go outside. There's no windows. It doesn't even affect anything outside. And I'm like, I really don't want to do this. And it's just like, so I just kind of waited. And then the client had to postpone the project. And so it can't even, it wouldn't matter. So there's like, they had some health problems. And so they had to just put it all off. It was really great. One more question about health stuff and more like the system. So you got the NHS and things are up kind of, it seems like pretty set, like you got your path forward. I was curious if you have naturopaths in the UK, if you have alternative medicine, if you have people that are looking
for... Oh, sure.
There
will be places, and there is a shop, chain of shops here called Holland and Barrett, who sell all of the herbal supplements and stuff. So it's very commoditized, but there are also... And there's a little bit of CBD stuff as well. And there will be natural practitioners and stuff like that available. And how much of that is prescribable is yet to be seen. I don't think there's a lot of it, but it is the kind of stuff that people talk a little bit more about.
That's good to know. Yeah, I've always tried to, for my own health, I've tried to steer that way because I felt like the Western medicine side of things likes to tackle symptoms, and the natural medicine likes to tackle the root problem that's causing the symptoms so that the symptoms go away eventually. And I've found finally through my fibromyalgia journey that that's actually starting to work for me. And I feel like I've actually fixed some root causes, and it's pretty great. Western medicine didn't care about the mold that was in my sinuses.
There's a guy that is, I was lucky enough to work with as a client earlier in the year that I'm now, I have been thinking more that I would like to work with him. I don't know if it'll be next year because it'll all be finance dependent and time dependent and stuff. But he's a sort of, I wouldn't necessarily use the word holistic because that when I've dived into that before, there is some murky and unpleasant waters. You can start getting into the world of, if you've got autism, drink bleach, which gets put under this like, yeah. There is a nasty side to what is called holistic, and I know that's not the real deal. But it was just someone called John Siracusa might put it, it's name space pollution. It's just, it's not the thing. But he is someone who is about sort of mind Well, his podcast, because that'll help me get the three points, is mindset, mood, and movement. And so he's very much about the same kind of idea of get at the root causes, probably more from a mental and emotional and movement physical side than necessarily a supplemental or herbal remedy type side, but all very much we have to move away from let's prescribe our way out of an issue. I think I don't know if this is different for the NHS, but I think the motivations lead to the same issues in the States. My understanding is it's very lucrative for doctors to prescribe things because of the way the reps work, and that's a whole industry. I don't think we have that here, but what I think we have, which leads to the same issue, is it's just easier. It just gets people off the books, and that's why they prescribe stuff. It's not necessarily that it's being forced, although, again, I might be wrong about that, but it feels like it's more the doctors are just like, we are so slammed, we get so little time with our patients. It's such a small window of time they actually get to see their patients and really find out what's wrong, that when we've got to clear the waiting times, we've got to do what we've got to do, we've got to meet our targets, and being able to prescribe, not irresponsibly, and I'm not suggesting that they do, but that feels like, and there are also other things that they want to, they're very evidence based, and so they will move away from some of the other stuff because they don't have the right data for it, and they want to prescribe certain things like CBD, not CBT, like cognitive behavioral therapy, and stuff that is very evidence based rather than general talking therapy, because they can't match the numbers up, and so it's very much what's going to get them out the door the quickest from a systemic point of view, not from what the individual doctors want to do, because they want to help people. And I'm sure that's the case in America. I don't think it's unique that just British doctors want to help people. But
no, definitely not. But yeah, they're also caught up in the system of money, like you said. Like it's so pushed on them so hard, it seems, to sell these pills. So one other little tiny thing of follow up, or in a different topic. You mentioned a little bedtime game that you played with yourself, where if you were gifted £1 million and had to do some sort of charity thing with it, and you thought of this perfect book, that reminded me later, upon reflection, it reminded me of I actually have kind of written a manifesto, or I've started one about health and about like a guide to living and being a good person and like interacting with other people well. I should share it with you and see what you think. Maybe we can hammer it out or something. It actually came from the fight I had with my sister that I alluded to last week. She set a boundary. I wouldn't say I reacted poorly, but I had feelings. I was really sad and scared about her setting this boundary. And so then I sent her a 3-hour video. We use an app called Marco Polo, to send video chats to each other. And I just turned it on and started talking to her, because I was like, at the beginning, I was like, hey, trigger warning, I might cross that boundary you sent. So if you don't want to hear that, don't listen. And then I just proceeded to talk like maybe it was the last time I was ever going to talk to my sister, because that was kind of how it felt when she set the boundary. And I said a whole bunch of things, and I don't believe she ever listened to it, because it turned out to be 3 hours, and that's massive. And I believe on her side, she also kind of used that as a justification to feel like I was going off the deep end and being above and beyond and weird and stuff. And sure, if you don't hear the context of what I said, which is a bunch of I love yous, I don't want this to break us apart, then you could, anyways, not important. Afterwards, she kind of gave me the silent treatment and some distance. And so I started taking notes, and I started like really hammering down what the issues are between us, And then I read it back to my, I edited a whole bunch and I honing it down and stuff. And then I read it with different eyes, and I was like, I could just take out a few references to my sister in this that are like just specific to her. And then this is kind of universal, like just good guidance. And so then I was like, I think I wrote a manifesto. So yeah, I'll share it with you, and then maybe next week we can check back in on it and see if you think it's just kind of hogwash, or if you think it's something that we should that should be worked on.
Would you not be prepared to read it out to us today?
Oh, I think it might be. I think it might be a little big, but I'd love to. Let me see if I have a good edit of it.
Because when I think manifesto, I guess I'm thinking in terms of sort of bullet points. These are the things we believe. But it sounds like you've got something a bit more comprehensive.
Yeah, it's a bit more comprehensive. It's kind of like a short book.
Right. Okay. Then I shall look forward to reading
it. It has a table of contents.
Right.
So, here's the first paragraph, and I haven't pre-read this, so I don't know what it says. I would like to invite an opportunity for you to forgive yourself for anything that has happened to this point. You don't need to wait for someone else to forgive you. The forgiveness has always been within yourself. Fear to love. From fear to love. Evolve from fear to love. Let your fear be surrounded by this love.
That's feels like a good starting point for life, doesn't it?
I'd like to think so. I remember being really proud of it when I wrote it. Let's see, this was in April. I wrote this. So.
What that really made me think then is there's something about honesty and truthfulness, and I don't want to use the word authenticity because it's starting to get, that word feels like it's starting to get poisoned.
Kind of inauthentic.
Yeah, it's just overused, and yeah, a little bit sort of Disney-fied. It's like Coca-Cola. Like, what do you mean? But there is something when you write something that feels that true to you. It's like pride kind of comes with it, and it is already. It doesn't need editing. It is already in its best form because it is a true expression of how you feel. Like it's already what it should be because it's truth. However that might sound, more and more in my life, I'm going to end up talking like a guru, and then I'm going to try and stop having to pour salt all over it and actually just let it sit. And if someone wants to call me out on it, that's fine.
Yeah, you don't need to pre-call yourself out.
No, I don't need to. Absolutely.
There's nothing to call out. It's just wisdom. It's just gold.
I might take my own advice then, and yes, because it comes from a true place, and therefore it is already perfect. I feel like we are becoming closer and closer to doing similar work from slightly different perspectives, in that you laid out in the first episode of this what you want to do as a dream of being a shaman, heal and helping people heal. An idea struck me, and it's still kind of the bell rang on Tuesday, and it's still echoing. Just going to bask in that for a moment. I'm warming my hands by the light of my own fire. My God, the aphorisms on this boy today.
Amazing. On point. Oh. And I'm so excited for this conversation. I'm so excited for this conversation with the stuff you've been starting and the things you've been saying. I listened to A Moment of Zen and your Walking Stride episode, and oh my God, I'm so excited to hear where this is going and how this is coming out. I'm all for it.
So we we've talked for a while that I've had this sort of sense that I knew there was something. There's been something. There's been a whisper around what I'm going to do, what I can do, what is my work to do, and it was around creativity and helping with creative expression. And it's clear. It's becoming ever more clear, and perhaps clearer now than certainly clearer now than it has done. And even after a conversation I had today, it's like it keeps sharpening its focus. And so I sort of have two paths that are kind of the same route, really, in that we've talked about manifestation, we've talked about sort of therapeutic, therapy. I've been learning more about positive psychology. I'm learning more about the Enneagram, and I've done my time with attachment theory. And so much of what I understand is that these are all different lenses on the same thing. They're all different ways of looking at the same thing. Just as, we can look at Western medicine versus Eastern medicine, or traditional herbal medicine, or, other healing practices. It's all the same. It's not that it's all the same, but it's all to try and do the same thing.
Common goal.
Thank you. And I was really taken with this idea on Tuesday so I was going for my big walk. What would it look like if creativity was one of those lenses, or creative expression, as a way of getting you from your current state to where you want to be, from your larva pupa to the butterfly that you're going to be. And for some, that's therapy. For some, it's spiritualism. For some, as we say, all these other things. And I was really interested in, if we're building a bridge, can the slats of that bridge be made out of ways that we can express ourselves: stories, songs, poems, dances, illustrations, cartoons, films, clothing, all these different ways that we can express ourselves to get to where we want to be. And so that was one part of it. And then what occurred to me today is thinking, okay, so that's one aspect. The other aspect is just reconnecting with that part of ourselves that many of us lost touch with. I think you and I'm dancing with it like crazy at the moment, and I know you've been dancing with it, and lots of people have forgotten that part of them exists. And how beautiful would it be, purely in of itself? That's a bad phrase, but purely for its own sake, to help people reconnect with that part of themselves. I think of it as the spark, and I properly saw in my mind, as I often do, and I ended up with a sort of really empathizing, as I can do, that being one of my superpowers, is this sort of hyper empathy, even for things that don't exist, or only notionally exist. I could really empathize with this spark that lives within us. Maybe an slightly older person, maybe a bit more wizened, and it's kind of, I just see it quivering in a corner, feeling alone, and all it wants to do is help you and work with you and dance with you, and that's all its motivation is. It's so completely pure. It wants nothing else other than to help, but it's not been allowed to, and it's just it just lives there, and so what can we do? How can we start by ruffling its hair and just acknowledging, oh hey, I see you. I lost sight of you for years. And maybe there's all sorts of different reasons. Maybe we were told as when we were younger, you're not creative. That's not what your thing is. You're intellectual, or you're whatever. You can't sing. Oh God, no! Don't sing. No, don't sing. Or fine, you've got those things. You've got those gifts. But what practical use is that? You've got a shop, you've got to run the family shop. Like, come on. Or you're going to go to university and you're going to do these things. This is the life that's laid out for you. This is what you're allowed to do. This is what we have time for. We don't have time for you to write your songs or to write your poems. And that little spark doesn't get fed. And I think I love this notion that we can, or that I can help, like I said, just like ruffle its hair to begin with, and then bring it to its feet and start very slowly to dance. And if we see that as a creature that we can nurture, and we can, and by trying and playing at lots of different things. Like, as I was chatting with my friend earlier today, I was thinking, I don't dance really. I don't really like to dance. I don't really like to move my body in that kind of way, because I have a sense, I told myself that I was clumsy, or that I am clumsy and I'm uncoordinated. So what does that mean? That means I can express myself physically in another way. I could do something that's more gesture, like definite gestures, like charades, rather than trying to be more fluid. Because if I don't feel fluid, there's another way I can move my body, so it doesn't restrict me. And so I love the idea of taking each one of these, taking a set of different creative expression or forms, and giving people the opportunity to play with them for a bit and just see which ones fit and which ones, resonate with them, and slowly they can bring this spark to its feet and start properly dancing with it, and see what comes out. And it might not be about achieving your ultimate form. It might just be about a bit of self-actualization and just, feeling more fulfilled. And yeah.
I love that, dude. When you described it as like all these different paths are just the avenues that resonate for a certain person to be able to find their way to working on themselves. Because that's really self-work, self actualization, self-expression, knowing yourself and being able to accept it. This is kind of the goal, right? This is what we're working towards. And yeah, when you express that creativity could be that for somebody, it doesn't have to be any of these other things. Like, they're all just great methods, but we can take the lessons that we learned from all those methods and do it through creativity. Like, that's I know you don't like hearing Mark as a verb, but like, that's just so Mark. That's so beautifully Mark. It's like,
oh, you can noun me. That's fine. You've nouned me. Okay, that's okay.
Oh, noun you. Yeah.
Just don't verb me.
And it's not just like that. That only applies to you, but it's so beautifully you, your method of bringing that to other people, because like, that's been you connecting with other people has been something that's obviously driven you like constantly for years and years. And you have this desire to also help people, not just connect with them. And man, I'm just so excited to see what you do in this space. Yeah, some sort of TBM of your own.
Yeah, I mean, that's
uses
it. Like,
creativity as the.
On one hand, there was like, the first thing I did was, when this idea started forming, this sort of first idea was like, I just stopped where I was walking, got my phone out, and was like, describe this little group program. Because that's sort of how it felt, having done one or two guided, 12-week whatever programs, get a bunch of people together and go through this journey. That's sort of how, what that felt like. But then there's this other part which could be done as a group, or could be done alone, or one-on-one, which is the deeply personal stuff of, how do we help you get some, maybe get some emotions that have been rattling around and you've never allowed yourself a different way of expressing them. I was, again, talking to my friend just before this call and saying, I'm doing so much right now. I've got so much output, but for the first time ever, it all feels so completely aligned and not too much at all. Like, it all feels right. we do this. In the morning, I do my Friday newsletter, which I write in under an hour, and I get it sent out. And I'm also facilitating a group where other people do the same thing. And then every morning now, I'm doing my little 10, 15-minute morning podcast. And then I've got the A to Z of happiness with my friend Anya. Yes, Anya. Sorry, Anya. I didn't forget your name. It's just you know. She knows. And then I'm working with a social media manager because there's so much stuff, and I want to make sure that it is found by people without me having to worry about it, because that's the thing that is the kiss of death for me. And then recording little videos and just it all just feels right. And like skiing downhill, it's wonderful.
Yeah. Well, I have something kind of fun coming up that I don't think I've really talked to you about. A little update on what we did talk about, though. The car accident last week. Yesterday, as I was going to acupuncture to help treat, because my knee's still hurting pretty bad and other stuff. You're not going to believe this, but another person hit me. Luckily, this time was way slower. It was just in a parking lot, and so we were like going like 10 miles an hour or whatever. But what really sucked about it was like it was a replay of the other accident in the. They didn't hit me in exactly the same spot, and this was on my truck instead of in the car because the car's totaled. But they came at me from the same side, and like I saw that, I could clearly see them. They just rolled through a stop sign, and I had no stop sign. Like they were entering the road that I was on from a parking lot, and like so I was already going slow and like watching my right side because of the trauma of that. And then this woman she's I talked to her later. She's like distracted because her husband's got this pancreatic issue, gangrene in his pancreas or something like that, and like it's been she's totally so overwhelmed by her life, and it's raining, super overcast and dark. It's everything is gray. She just couldn't see. Also, I think how like in the front of a car you got the posts on either side that are holding up the windshield, the post between the door and the windshield. I think it's called like the A pillar or something like that. I think I was completely in her blind spot behind that as well, as she's turning left onto the road, and she just couldn't see me. But she was going slow, maybe 10 miles an hour or whatever, and then she just bonks right into the front. And I'm like, I see her coming. I'm fully stopped. I'm honking on my horn, and she's like is checked out. And it's just but then I was like, just rattled afterward. There was no pain, no injuries on either side, but it was just like this again. Oh my God!
What was the conversation as you both got out your cars?
Honestly, I didn't speak much. I felt I was trying, like I have a lot of understanding for other people and their issue. Like I could see she was
she's not terribly
upset. She's definitely not a villain. She didn't do it on purpose. It was just she couldn't see me and super distracted. And but I was in this place where I'm like, okay, I'm not mad at you, but like I'm overwhelmed. I'm rattled. Like this is just like I just wanted to go drop off my nasal test at the post office and get that the obligation taken care of. I didn't want another Geico claim. I didn't want to do to handle that. And then I saw that there was somebody else sitting in their car, so I walked over to see if they'd witnessed it, and they're like, "No, I was just on my lunch. I didn't see it." And so, we exchanged our information, and she was really nice about it, really apologetic and everything. And I was trying to do my best. For me, as a 9, as a people pleaser, as just me or whatever, I want to, quell everybody's fears. I'm like, oh, it's all right. Oh, it's just fine. Everything's fine. but like also, it's not like you just hit my car, and I don't want to say that. Like, like I know it's not recorded, but it's also like not. I was like doing this dance where I just can't say anything right now. I I'm okay. I didn't get hurt. We'll just have the people that we pay to deal with this, and that'll be that. But it was just so then I got to my acupuncture appointment, and I was like, yeah. So I just had another car accident, and I'm like, what? Anyways, but what's actually fun that's coming up? Fun? I don't know about fun. I have signed myself up for probably one of the biggest challenges I will put myself through in memory. And I'm pretty talkative here on this podcast, but I'm typically pretty quiet. I'm not a super talkative person. I usually sit in the background and wait for somebody to talk to me or that kind of thing. And this, I know I'm supposed to be half the conversation, so I try to do my part. And I'm also really excited to talk with you about all this stuff. This is super fun. But I've signed myself up for a 3-day silent retreat. And what this consists of is, obviously you don't bring your phone. There's no books. There's no input. There's no output. You don't speak. You don't. There'll be other people there. There's probably going to be 20 to 40 other people there. I have no idea, but that's kind of what I assume based on the size of the retreat center. And you don't make conversation. You actually don't even make eye contact. You're kind of doing a group activity by yourself, or you're doing a solo activity in a group. One of those two. And there'll be a Dharma talk once in the morning or the evening, I think. But otherwise, you eat all your meals in quiet. You meditate all day. You do some walking meditations around the property, and you just don't speak, don't connect with anybody. And I've had some friends that have done this, and it's been incredibly challenging for them, and also very productive, I'll say. It's been eye-opening, and it brings things out of your mind and your heart and your body and your spirit that get ibuprofen, that get kind of numbed by our just daily existence, where we're talking and thinking and producing and inputting, and we don't have this time to really listen for a long time. And I know this, like, from what I was just saying about how I don't usually speak. I wait until somebody like talks to me, like if I'm in a group or whatever. I'm not the socialite. I'm more of an introvert. And even when conversation does come around to me, sometimes it'll take me a long time to think of what to say, or to really get out the thought that I have. And I could see the same being the case for my body and my spirit. It might take a while for it to tell me exactly what it's thinking or what it's wanting, or if I kind of watch a show every night, that's distracting me from being able to actually sit and listen to myself.
Yeah, what a wonderful opportunity for some introspection and some really connecting with yourself, and taking that time to have no input, no stimulus of any kind.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
Oh, I mean, I guess there will be stimulus in nature.
Yeah. I'll be able to walk around the property, and I'll do a lot of pacing. I'll definitely do a lot of walking, I think. I'm at my depending on how well my knee feels from by that time. I don't know how much sitting in one position I will enjoy, but it's going to be really exciting. I told my friend about it, who's done a few of them. He actually lived in a cave in India for a while as he was going through one of his spiritual and health journeys, and that was like It was like 4 miles from the Dalai Lama's palace in India, and yeah. I kind of wonder like what kind of vibes he picked up just from being in that proximity. You know, that'd be pretty amazing. And he's really excited for me. So
I look forward to hearing what happens and what comes out of it. And yeah, I imagine you got to go through like a real moment of just like it all must be quite a lot, and I'd imagine there's quite a lot that you want to express because you're probably feeling so much, and then after a while I assume it's just like that all bubbles up and then probably just kind of dissipates. Wow, yeah, I can't wait to hear about it.
I've been doing meditation a lot since about 2013. That's when I really started my meditation practice. And I typically do about 30 minutes a day. I'd say on average 5 days a week since then. And there's been times when it's been much more dedicated. There's been times where I haven't been able to find the time for it. And I'd say in the longest I've ever been able to meditate or have some sort of silent introspection is probably about an hour 15, somewhere around there. And then, I'm pretty anxious to get some input. I'm pretty anxious to fill. It's like, okay, I feel like my cup is empty now. Let's fill it up with something to occupy me.
So this is like the whole thing that you used to say about batteries, where you charge them to 80%, and then you charge them to 100%, and then you're supposed to let them completely drain all the way out, and then charge them back up again. That's sort of what that sounds like, really.
It does. It is like that. Yeah. And I often do a meditation that's either like with a guided meditation with sounds, or just with music that has no lyrics. And I like that because then I can move. It's hard for me to actually just sit still. My body doesn't really I get a lot of pains in my body if I just sit still. And so oftentimes, even if I don't have music, I'll just kind of sway and move a bit as I'm meditating. But yeah, so this will be an extreme jump into the deep end of and it's not the longest. I could have done a 7-day silent retreat, whatever. But this one was.
Yeah, I think someone I know has gone on one recently.
Oh wow, yeah. And how was it for them?
I haven't spoken to them, ironically enough. So I actually don't know.
Yeah, so I know that there's bigger things to jump into, but this one is being done by a support group that I go with here in Portland. It's called Refuge Recovery. It's like an addiction recovery alternative to AA, and it's not just in Portland; it's like nationwide and elsewhere. But they're hosting the retreat, and so it's going to be with some people that I know, and kind of like the author of the book that Refuge Recovery follows. It's like a Buddhist path to addiction recovery. He's going to be the Dharma speaker, and so I'm pretty interested in hearing what he has to say because his book is really great. So so that's what's coming up for me. I'm pretty excited about it.
This puts me in mind of something I came up against or across. I think it was probably last year, which is the 12-hour walk.
Whoa.
Yeah, and it's literally as it sounds. Is that you lace your shoes up in the morning and you just walk. And you pack a bag and that's it.
Margaret would love that.
Yeah. And I don't know if there are any restrictions in that, you're not supposed to wear headphones or have any input, but I think it is much more about spending that time purposefully with yourself. And yeah, people have come back with all sorts of things, and I think that's something I think I wouldn't mind doing because I can walk. I mean, I the most I've done is probably as a kid we did something like a 6-hour walk. It wasn't meant to be, but we got lost up a mountain, couldn't figure out how to get home.
Wow, that is a long walk.
That is a long, yeah. And I've done like a couple of years ago, I did 3.5 hour walk along the Cornish coastline, and that was really special. That's the first time I'd done it on my own. I'd done it before with family, but it was the first time doing it on my own, and that felt quite significant. And there's even a moment at the end that felt like a pilgrimage, because everybody's walking to this fishing village called Padstow, and I remember getting to this bit that I'd sort of recognised and gone, oh, I think I recognise this bit. There's this cross here that was a bit of a landmark, and then you start to see one person, and then you walk a bit further and you see another person, and you start to see them all converge on this path, and it was beautiful. It was just, it really, it was like everybody had been doing the same pilgrimage. I mean, they hadn't, a bunch of people had probably just rocked up from the car park, but it was just the fact that they all started to stream in after I'd done this, this walk that was sort of proving to myself that I could, not so much for the physical exertion, but the not getting lost of it, all that kind of stuff. It was really special. So I heard about this 12-hour walk and watched the video and read all the literature and stuff, and I thought that is something I wouldn't mind having a little flirt with.
I'd go with, yeah. That's amazing. When Margaret and I visited your wonderful country, we walked a lot. Definitely did not get to 12 hours of walking. Margaret may have gotten that close to that. She would be able to go on longer walks than I would. I would be like, I'd go for an hour or so, and I'm like, I gotta sit down. Oh my gosh, I'd be sucking on my vape pen, trying to feel better and everything. She'd be like, all right, well, I'm just gonna go ahead and I'll go to this castle, and there, I'll go over here. And some of those castles, they are off the beaten track. They are hard to get to. I was really surprised when we went to Stonehenge. We went to the visitor center and then took the little bus up to get to have us drop us off there. And there's also a walking path that you can take to walk out to there from the visitor center. And we decided to walk back, which was really great because nobody else was taking the walking path back. And so we just got to, we go into this giant penned area for sheep. And so we're just walking with the sheep for a while. And then we go onto the big mounds of the remains that are set there so that they have a view of Stonehenge when they're dead, and walked around those and walked through this little forest and stuff. And it was really, really great, especially all alone. It was just magical. But what was funny is I didn't really realize that when you're at Stonehenge, when you're with the stones, like you can see the highway right there. Like there's a road really close so that people can see Stonehenge as they're driving by. And we came in kind of from a different direction, so we didn't see it coming up. And I was like, kind of both like, oh wow, that's cool. You can just drive by it and see it and just kind of get connected with it that way. And also, that traffic noise. Like, I just want to be here in the serene quiet and soak in these stones. But, what can you do?
I sort of think there's... I don't know. I sort of had this thought then of like, we can... I don't know about worry is the right word, but we can sort of think that sometimes there is a right way to absorb a thing. I must absorb this in silence, or I must have this thing. And it's like, I don't know, maybe that is the right way. Maybe the way to do it is just to be there and to interact with like all the different forms of what that particular bit of landscape is at the time. And right now in this period in history, it has some cars and but it'll still be there, hopefully. In 100 years when all the cars make no noise.
And we all are the Big Bang. We all are the stardust that started everything. And so we have lived every lifetime that has come up to this point, and we will live every lifetime afterwards. And so we've already experienced it in its most serene, quiet state. Just when it was nubs in a circle, and then when it was leveled, and then when it was the first stones were brought.
It was a tiny little baby
and
henge.
Then when the blue stones were brought later, and like we've experienced every level of it, and now we get to experience it with a highway next to it.
Brendan, I think this is our time. I mean that in all of the senses.
This is our time. This is our time.
This is our time.
And I know you just titled the your Life in Stride episode a Moment of Ven, and you were like not sure about what and I know you're not trying to get a name for your thing, but I love the name A Moment in Ven. Like I know it doesn't quite probably fit, but it's just like also just kind of cool. Like I don't know, there's something to it. But yeah, this is our time. We got to sign off. I love you, buddy. We'll talk to you next week.
I love you too, man. Thank you. So, okay, quick point of admin is that whatever you did, if you want to turn yourself down, then that would be good, because
sure.
It sounds like this will be good, and it's now sounding a bit distorted, so I want to make sure that you sound...
I wonder if it's different when it's not recording yet.
No, I think it's just because you started talking more animatedly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I started talking.